what has been the visual evolution of the show? And sort of where is it now in season 6?
Well, I mean, I think it's developed in its own way to a certain extent. You know, Saul is a much more stable, landed show. We don't do push-ins, you know, unnecessary. Maybe do a half a dozen of them all season long. And for me, lighting-wise, it's progressed into a much more natural-looking environment. You know, that was going back to what you were talking about, embracing new technology and the digital. That's one of the things that I've discovered along the way with the digital that I don't need. You know, I can light with practicals mostly on the street. You know, adding street lights rather than putting big condors up and stuff like that, which I find looks much more natural. Kind of embracing the natural imperfections of street lights. So that's kind of progressed. It's gotten a bit darker, I think, as has the story, as it kind of moved closer and closer to the, colliding with the Breaking Bad world. I think we've gotten a little closer and wider as we progressed to slightly wider lenses. I mean, the LF, the large format frame allows you to be wider with a lens that's not so distorted. So that's part of the thing that I think has happened a bit with the LF. But yeah, it's just been a collaboration, as that whole thing is. We are all firm believers that we're all better. We're better artists as a group than we ever could be individually, and so together, we'll come up with something that we all love very much. So.
Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, for that matter, are kind of known for these really interesting angles and strange shots and different perspectives, and we've talked about a couple of them just in the first episode of season 6 alone. Looking back on all the work that you've done with Better Call Saul, do you have a favorite one of those types of shots, like one of those signature Better Call Saul unique shots?
Oh boy, I don't know.
There's probably so many. And also, like, where does that influence come from? Because it is a signature of the show.
It's absolutely comes from Vince. That was an idea that Vince, he always wants, storytelling wise, and then, of course, and again, it always has to be driven by the story. We never do a shot because it looks cool or whatever. It's got to advance the story. It's got to be driven by story. But, as a storyteller, Vince has always wanted to get into places that you wouldn't normally be able to put a camera, because nobody even thinks that, at the front of, looking through the hole of a gas cap as somebody unscrews it and pours gasoline into, or whatever it may be. So, and he loves to do everything in camera, like all of those scope shots, all of the shots through the scope and Bagman, that's all done in camera. We had an A7 II that we would set up with that scope pushed up against it and shoot everything through it. So that's kind of where it was driven from, but it's evolved, and I would say 90% of them are actually in the script to begin with.
Really?
They're written, yeah. That group they stay together for a very long time, and they're very collaborative. Even though each individual person writes their own script, but they're very collaborative in the development, and they come up with those things together. And then season 6, Vince who hadn't been involved the last couple of seasons as much. I mean, he was, worked as a director, obviously, but wasn't as involved in the writing because of COVID, was with them for the entire year. And so they all wrote all together, and has a lot of his influence in there, obviously, as you can imagine.
Yeah. I mean, what I guess a silver lining in everything that went on is to have those relationships kind of deepen a little bit, because you're basically like in a bubble with these people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think to a certain extent, he wanted to be involved, even if there wasn't, because he was, it was the end of the universe, and, something that he created, and obviously has been a huge influence on his own life. So, and everybody else's. So yeah, absolutely. I think he wouldn't have had it any other way, he directed 3 of the episodes. It's none of the ones that I did. I don't know if I should be offended, but all even numbers.
He's like, is Marshall doing that one? I'll pass.
Okay, I'll do the next one.
Exactly.